So I'll share this screen. Okay, can everybody see that?
Yes.
Yep, looks good.
Okay, great. Okay, I guess first things first, as a quick disclaimer, as you saw in the invite, this is not sanctioned by Viasat. I'm not a financial advisor. This is meant not to be construed as advice at all. It's meant to be an interactive conversation, and hopefully you find this educational and useful. I did this a time before, and some people seemed to find it useful, and it came out that asked if I would do this again. And maybe we can dig into go deeper on some areas if you guys find it useful. And my last slide talks about that specifically. Okay, next, I guess to start off, this is meant to be interactive. Sadly, money is like too taboo to talk about. It's like more taboo than sex. And I do not claim to have all the answers, but like many of you, I came from a modest means, and parents that didn't know what they were doing with money and didn't know how to invest. And so it was many years of self-study to get to where I'm at, and I like to share what lessons learned so that hopefully people don't make the same mistakes that I had. And found a few years ago, just discussions in the hallway, people seemed to want to lunch and learn on this, and so we decided to do it just as COVID was hitting, and was asked to do it again. I'm not preaching anything up here, but hopefully, like some of the mistakes I've made, you can prevent making those yourself, and hopefully this will also keep you from being apprehensive about asking questions, because I understand not knowing a lot of things. So please, and if I don't see something, maybe throw it in a chat, or if somebody else, raise their hand, that might help if you have a question. Okay, now for the pencil and paper. These are quick questions, and this is just to really give a gut feeling to answer these questions. It should take you a second. We're not Googling these. It's really just to see what are your preconceptions and biases. I noticed that I was surprised by a lot of these answers and what I grew up thinking and what is reality. So I'll give you a few seconds on each of these, and then I've got 5 more questions on the next page. Okay, ready to move on to the next one? Okay, this is a Big 5 financial literacy quiz. By the way, 2/3 of Americans fail this. So don't feel bad if you get some of these questions wrong. But and only 34% or less than 34% could get 4 out of 5 correct. So. Hey, Nicole, I see you just arrived. You're just late for the pop quiz.
Oh boy, I wasn't quite late enough then. Whoopsie.
You can answer these 5. These are the five Big 5 financial literacy quiz. But the other one was just kind of about millionaire studies and what the data has shown. Okay, anybody need me to hold up for a second, or ready to go to the answers?
Let's have the last 2 remaining, sorry.
Okay, no problem.
Okay, I'm ready. Sorry about that.
Okay, hey, no problem, Jensen. Thanks. Okay,
Alan, can
real
we go
quick.
back?
Yep, go back to this one.
No, you're good. That's one.
Okay. Nicole, this is the one I was saying that you were you had missed.
I'll do a screen grab of it really quick then, so I don't hold anybody up.
And like I mentioned to anybody that came on late, these aren't rhetorical questions we're seeing to Google. It's just to see your kind of biases and preconceptions. I know I was surprised by a lot of these answers. So it's just good to see where you're kind of, for me, where I'm thinking. I remember thinking like from my parents that to be wealthy, you had to come from wealth and other silly things like that can set us up off on the wrong path initially. Okay, I'm going to move to the answers, unless anybody has. Actually, I'm just going to move. Okay, so the first one, scary, but only 40% of Americans can have $1,000 that they come up with emergency savings. So hopefully that doesn't us advise that don't fall into that, but that's the statistics that are consistent year to year. The second one is probably the one that surprised me the most when I first heard 80%, and that's consistent since back in like 1880. Not 1980, since like over a century ago. Consistently, 80% of people have become millionaires on their own without any help from their parents, or and really wealth is just lost generation to generation. 70% is by the second and third, 90% by the third. And I think it kind of makes sense when you think about it, that people don't have a value of a dollar if they've never had to work hard for it. It's kind of how I think of that. The third one, Nicole, Meredith, you guys should both have gotten that right. That was before we talked about in the last time I did this. I think it's a surprise though. Only household income, when they made their first million, was only $89,000, and that's median. So that means half of households had less than that when they became a millionaire, which is I think is can be quite humbling, I guess. Many of us think. Well, you can all see the answers. Any of these surprise you guys specifically, or is it what you were thinking?
Yeah, the first one.
It's scary, isn't it?
Yeah, $1,000. I mean, wow.
Yeah, it's okay. And then the big five literacy, financial literacy questions. Just let you take a look at those. And I think number 3 would probably be challenging for a lot of people. That's kind of interest rates and bonds. That's not very well known, but hopefully the rest weren't too difficult. So any questions there? Okay, this is kind of more of just a rhetorical for you to think, because I think saving money and investing money, you really need it. What is your why? What matters to you and what makes your life rich? You can't pay for everything, so what matters to you and what do you value? I think that's important to figure out. That way you know what to spend spend lavishly on and where to cut, and then ultimately, so that you can retire when you want, not when you get forced retired. Okay, here's a quick agenda of what we'll be going through. And like I said, I might have to skip around towards the end to make sure we get to what I think is some essential ones. Okay, does anybody know what the true secret to wealth is?
Happiness.
What's that?
Happiness.
Well, well, hopefully, yeah, that's, I guess, secret to a wealthy life in general. But just as far as building wealth, it's kind of a clickbait thing, but it really is this simple: spend less than you make, invest the savings surplus wisely, and avoid significant debt, and you will be wealthy. The sad thing is, people can, make 500K a year and still be broke because they don't put anything away, for the future. But each of those, the little topics can be its own little thing. Have you guys heard of the Stanford marshmallow experiment, where they took little babies that are like 4 years old, and the psychologist, they put a marshmallow in them and said, okay, if you can, hold off on this, you'll get 2, when I come back. And then they leave the room, and they're videoing them, and the kid typically, would eat, couldn't help himself and would eat it. But if they did, if they came back without eating it, they got another one. Well, the interesting part of that study was 25, 30 years later, they followed these people up, and the people that had deferred gratification at 4 years old were in a far better state financially, and in other areas of their life, which was pretty, I think that was the most interesting part. But just a little bit of deferred gratification will go a long way. And really, the ultimate thing is take some discipline, get it on automatic, and compounding is an incredible thing. Most of you, that's why I try to do this for people that are really young, because the faster you can get started, the better it is. Do you guys know what your savings rate is? And is it at least 20 to 25%? And it's hard, I know, when you're starting. What are you saying, Chanson?
Yes.
It is good.
Mine is. Do you count 401k in all of total savings, or just what do you include in that?
Yeah, I include. I guess I consider this really more for. Yes, 401k is definitely part of it. It's kind of a tough balance when you're going, okay, what's traditional, what's Roth, but things that, and really I would consider that like saving for retirement, but it could be saving for a house as well. I mean, ideally you want to, this would be kind of retirement savings, if you could. And another thing is, how long does it take your money to double? What's that?
Rule of 7.
72. Yep. So this is a quick thumb rule. And this is assuming like you're not constantly adding more money, but if you just, say you stopped working and you wanted to figure out how much, how long does it take, say you have $100,000, how long is it going to take to get 200,000? It's, you divide what your average rate of return is, and that'll into 72, and that'll determine 8% is a kind of a standard number used for how the market does. And so if you were able to get an 8% each year, it'd take you 9 years to double. And one of the things that's kind of important, I think, with this is sometimes people go too conservative as they get near retirement, and they lose that last doubling, which that's the most important one. When you go from X million or something, to the next one, you don't want to go suddenly all conservative and fixed income. You've got to keep growing. So, real quick, whenever I say in saving, we shouldn't say saving for retirement, because you're not getting anywhere if you're saving. You got to be investing that. And so if I'm using the term saving in general, that means investing. But if you're just putting it into CDs or a savings account, or even a high yield savings account, you're not beating inflation, and you're just losing long term. So you need to be in the market, in real estate, and other things that actually keep pace and beat inflation. Okay, how much do you need to retire? Some people, okay, you guys probably know Sue Zorman. She's like, oh, you got to have 5 to 10 million. And what is the number? The thing is, what really matters is how much you're spending. Financial independence or financial freedom, there's kind of a good thumb rule, but ultimately financial independence is you can stop working and your money will grow to pay for your expenses for the rest of your life. They determined this safe withdrawal rate. A good thumb rule is the 4% rule, which is, it's just a rule of thumb. This isn't a law or anything, but if once you have 25 times your annual expenses, this Trinity study showed that with 96% success, you would not run out of money in 30 years. And actually in half of the cases, you'd have like something like 4 times the amount of money. So anyway, that's a good rule of thumb as you're starting to, the hardest thing, I guess, is determining, hey, how much are you going to spend in retirement? And so you got to figure that out. How much are you going to, probably travel more. You might, like when I consider it, I have a pretty large travel budget that I expect. I also plan, I want to be able to afford having the golf membership at the country club, those kind of things that you put in, add those in, and what matters, that doesn't matter to some people, but that's what I want to do. And that way it helps me get to my number, what I know is more accurate. So I have a better baseline of when I'm there.
Hey, Alan,
Yep.
when you're calculating that number, and let's say you're not within 10 years of legally being able to pull out 401k or a Roth IRA or something like that, how do you factor in a percentage of that money to assume you can use it, in 10 or 15 years, but it's obviously not liquidated? You can't liquidate it now. Do you ever calculate it into the number, or do you just leave it until that time frame?
Well, I'd say, Kevin, there's a couple things there. One, and we'll get into that, but not all of your your retirement savings should just be in 401ks
Right.
or IRAs. That's where you have your brokerage account, but
Yep.
you can also pull out money before 59 and a half. And we can get into some of those. How do you do that? Whether it's the rule of 55, there's
Mhm.
the 72T, which I don't like. But if you're at 55 and you're at if you're at Viasat and you're working and you're 55 and you retire, you can start pulling out from your 401k right then. There's other ways that you can do the Roth conversion ladder, where you need to start that earlier, but you can start rolling stuff into your 401k, your Roth IRA, and every conversion, it starts this 5-year clock.
Right.
Once that 5 years hits up, you can pull that money and earn earnings out, tax and penalty free.
Right. So I guess it sounds like I may go into it, but like an HSA that you're planning to take out at age 60, once it rolls into a Roth IRA, do you just not calculate that?
It doesn't roll. That's not accurate. It doesn't roll into a Roth IRA if it's not for medical expenses. It's actually deferred. Just FYI.
Well, yeah, I guess
I think a misconception. Okay, I just want to make sure people.
Yeah, sorry, you're right.
Okay.
But just in the sense that at certain ages you're able to use money differently.
Yep.
Okay, I'll just let you.
Yeah, and no, that's a great question, and that's one it might be, it's we'll see if we can get to, but more detail. But I've got some that breaks down of, hey, here's my in my opinion, hierarchy of saving and investing, and why you need that pool of money outside of 401ks.
Right.
For one, for early retirement, and secondly, for maximum life tax management.
Okay.
Okay, anybody have any questions? And FU money, it's just what you think, FU money. But that's when, if the job really sucks, you have enough, 2 years worth where you can just say, sorry, it's not worth it. That's just always a good number to have as well. Okay, so spend less than you make. Here's the things we'll go over on in terms of spending less than you make. Budget. I don't like doing a budget myself, but everybody has to do it at some point, where you really at least get an understanding of what your overall expenses are. And you need to look at, I think, at least 6 months, because you need to count for things like car insurance, things that you don't pay very often, auto car registration, homeowners insurance or renters insurance, et cetera. Those once every 6 months, once every year items you want to take a look at. But then ultimately the key is to pay yourself first, just like you do hopefully with your 401k. You have set it up automatic. And then for other things, you just make it a set allotment each month out of your paycheck or out of your account that goes into whether it's your brokerage account or other savings accounts that you might have. Like you can do that for, everybody knows they're going to be buying gifts and spending for Christmas and all these, or holidays. But you could put away a little bit each month so that it's not suddenly a huge credit card bill at the end of the year. And the big thing is just not always increasing your living standard. Did everybody, if you haven't already maxed out your 401k, does everybody have theirs on auto increase, or did they increase it this year when they got their raise?
Like mine's like auto increase every year.
Okay. And then you might, if you're comfortable with that, bump it up another percent if you can. It's because 1% you probably won't really notice. One of the things, the biggest things though, is investing. Really, usually people call it savings rate, but like I said, I don't like to call it savings because you got to be investing that money. But especially when you're young, your savings rate is far more important than what the rate of return is. And I kind of circled a couple of these numbers, like down on the left, you see that's the savings rate, and hopefully you can go even much higher than that. And across the top is what the interest rate you're making. Too many people try to think they're going to shoot the moon and have these high expectations, when don't waste your time. Just buy the whole market and maximize how much you can save. Instead, you make more money becoming good at your job and getting raises than trying to thinking you're Warren Buffett or somebody else, because you're not. He's been doing it like for 90 hours a week since he was 10 years old. There's not, it's extremely hard to beat the market. So just maximize your savings rate, invest that money in the market, and then you'll get, as in the Simple Path of Wealth, he talks about it very well. The best thing you could almost do is just keep shoving money never looking at it into the total US stock market index fund, and then in 40 years pull it out, but you'll probably need a doctor there because you're going to have a heart attack how much money you have. Okay, big three to reduce spending. I think everybody probably knows this, but housing, transportation, and food, that's where we blow most of our money. If there's certain people that, if you can spend, in my opinion, less than 25%, if you're paying for, buying a house, I like that to include everything. And specifically, I wanted to include utilities, cable, and cell phone. Especially when I was military, I expected the BAH to cover at least all of that, and then hopefully have some more. That was we had a housing allowance in the military, Matt and Karina, as you know, and Christian. But it's some other people, and I know there's people here that are much stronger in real estate. House hacking is the way to go if you can. That's whether it's buying multifamily units, having an ADU, an additional dwelling unit, or just having roommates where they're paying half of your mortgage. Wow, that's the best thing you can do, because that's your largest overall expense. Does everybody get what I'm saying about the 23-8 rule for cars? Kind of like how much car you can afford. That's a thumb rule I like. And most of us, especially coming out of college, I don't know, I've heard it sometimes, people say we go through the finish line when we're at the starting gate, spending way too much money on a new car. But if you could keep your, put 20% down on a car, be able to pay it off within 3 years, and the total for all car payments should be less than 8% of your gross income. And that's all for if you're married, that includes both, any cars, all the cars should be less than 8%. It's kind of conservative, but it's amazing how much you blow on a car. It's such a depreciating asset. And then food, of course, we know how much we spend eating out and at happy hour. Okay, here's what I found the fundamental mistakes. Kind of mentioned some of these already, but I think the most recent one that everybody should take a look at, that I said it's homework, is subscriptions. It's so easy. Everything's a subscription now. And if you don't, every once in a while, probably every 6 months, you need to take a look at your, what did I forget to cut off? Because all those things add up, and do you really need them all? Does it really matter that there's some commercials in Spotify? You know, like, you know, it just depends on what you want to spend money on, but subscriptions are a total killer anymore. Any questions there?
Andrew had a good question in the chat, unless you want to place it somewhere
Okay,
else.
sorry.
Related.
Yeah, let me.
It's about the 401k and your perspective on pausing contributions to save up for a down payment.
I don't. Okay, let me see what his question is. Okay, one, and it's tough in California because housing in Southern California is so expensive. But say on your first house, like in general, I'd want to put at least 20% down, unless you're fortunate and have the ability to get a VA loan, which is awesome. But even with a VA loan where you could put 0 down, it's going to be hard to get something that's less than 25% of your gross income. Pausing your 401k and not getting that match, I just don't agree with. That's free money. If somebody had $1,000 on the table, would you leave it there or would you pick it up? Or 5,000, or up to, you know, like, it's if you make 100K, that's $5,000 you're just leaving on the table. You would not do that if it were sitting in front of you. So if that's only 10% of your pay, and if you can't afford to keep that while you're also saving up separately for a house, then I think it's time to look for other areas to cut if possible. And then also maybe on your first house, don't be concerned that you have to put the whole 20% down. After that, after a second home, or, you know, if you move to something else, yeah, you should get 20%, but don't feel that you have to get that, because that is a lot of money, and that might take a long time. So does that answer the question? I mean, that's, and like I said, this is just my opinion, but I just hate leaving free money on the table. That's just.
It does. Thank you very much.
Okay. Okay, any other questions? I mean, most of you probably like student loans, probably, you know, people had to have some, but I think that's a good rule of thumb, if you can, is to try to have it lower than what you expect your first year salary would be. There's people with some, you know, some degrees that are almost 200K in debt, yet, you know, they're nowhere going to get, they're going to be paying that for many years. It's you know, it's really terrible how the cost of the education has went up, but that's one of the beauties of also of the military. People can also transfer it to their kids, but too many people don't look for scholarships. It's amazing. There's something like, I can't remember the number, but an insane number of scholarships that are left on the table every year just because people don't take advantage of it. So, okay, now it's not clicking. Let's see. Okay, now we'll go into, this is kind of just investing the savings wisely. How do you do that? That was what I was confused about early on. And so these are, like I said, these are my opinions, but the key is to get invested quickly, and just put as much money in as you can. And you'll be happy. Real quick, saving versus investing. We kind of talked about that. The first thing, life insurance is not an investment. I heard this great analogy that I loved about you and I got fooled when I was like 20 by insurance. These people come and scam the young military, and you hear this, you know, guaranteed rate of return. Unfortunately, we, you know, in the military, we have some senior people. I went and told them about it, and they're like, "You idiots! That's insurance. Get out of it." And we were able to get out within 30 days. But cash value whole life insurance is like buying a car with a built-in dishwasher. It doesn't make sense. You don't need a dishwasher in your car. I thought that was great, but they Consumer Reports did show that the average cash, you're paying so much in fees and everything else, unless you are making huge amounts of money and you've already maximized your 401k, your IRA, your HSA, you've got some brokerage account, and you still got way too much money and need a tax shelter. The whole life insurance is normally not good. If you have kids with special needs, there's definitely reasons for it. But for the vast majority of people, term life insurance is a better answer. It's so much cheaper, and you only need insurance, right, to cover if something happens. If you don't have any dependents, if nobody's depending on your income, if you're single and no kids, you shouldn't have life insurance. You don't need it. That money can be going to securing your financial freedom and then self-insuring later. That's the beauty of term life, is you can set it for so many years. And then once you're financially independent, you don't need insurance. You got all the money you need. So, then why give it away to the insurance salesman? Anyway, I'll get off my horse there. But like I said, some people there's good reason for whole life, especially with special needs kids and some other things. But in general, term life is better. Time horizon. If you're putting money in the market, don't expect it to fall. You best be looking at minimum 5 to 7 years and probably longer. And then in terms of emergency fund, 3 to 6 months, this is what you need for living expenses. What they've shown when real recessions hit that are tough, it can take us a lot of times 6 months. So that's much more safer. But we'll go into it. The Roth IRA can be an emergency savings if you need it. You don't want to, but if you only have so much money and you can't afford both putting money towards an emergency fund and to a Roth IRA, you can always pull out your Roth IRA contributions immediately. So you don't want to. It's only in a case of emergency, but it's just a cool option, which I'll go into later about why Roth is so awesome. Okay, how do I invest for retirement? This I realized, and this might be a little bit elementary for some people. Sorry, but there's misunderstandings about what you can put your money into. And I'm going to go quickly over tax advantage retirement accounts. The employer-sponsored ones is like we have the 401k, 401a, 403b, TSP. Those are all similar thing. And what they are is an account with certain tax code that has certain tax advantages. Somebody want to explain what the difference between traditional and Roth is?
Roth would be you get taxed now, and when you pull out when you retire, there's no tax after that. But traditional is you get taxed when you retire.
Correct. So traditional is tax deferred, meaning you don't pay taxes now, but then when you pull it out, you pay taxes on all that income, all that money, and on all the growth. Roth is beautiful. Roth is named after a senator. His last name, and that you pay taxes now, but then all that growth and earnings comes out tax-free in the end. So really it's kind of complicated, like which do I do? And it's best, like Roth is, I think of typically early, when your tax bracket is a little lower, you want to maximize your Roth as much as you can. As your tax bracket gets super high, you might want to use more traditional so that you then, when you stop working and your income is lower, you drop to a lower tax bracket, pull the money out, then you're getting taxed at a lower tax bracket. Does that make sense?
Hey,
I know I'm kind of going through this quickly. Yeah. Hey, Dustin.
So I was reading somewhere where it says that if you make a certain amount, you can't contribute to a Roth IRA.
Yeah, we'll get into that. That's coming, Dustin. Don't worry. That's an important thing. That's something I'm actually angry about Congress trying to get rid of that. But there's a backdoor Roth IRA conversion. Second, though, okay, so that's employer sponsored. You can also do a health savings account. One thing, a health savings account, I talked to somebody else about this that validated it. but studies have shown that people that have a high yield, high deductible health plan, they won't go to the doctor when they should because of the payment. So while HSA is an awesome way to save you know, for retirement, because you can invest that money in its triple tax savings, if it's going to kill you, don't do it. You know, like, so, and if you might have several kids, you know, that having in our Viasat, we have a great health plan that's relatively affordable. So don't feel like you have to take the high deductible health plan. It's, you know, it's a great savings vehicle, but what's most important is your health. So if having that high deductible is going to keep you from staying healthy, then to me, it's not worth it. Individual retirement accounts. These are the IRAs that we're talking about. Now you can contribute both to 401ks and to health savings account and to an IRA. And everybody should have an IRA and a Roth IRA, in my opinion. But yes, Dustin, you actually need both. The key about the IRAs and the non-tax advantage accounts, like the brokerage accounts and stuff like that, is it's a two-step process. You have to fund it, which is then cash. Now it's fund that account, and then you have to invest it. In the 401k, it's already automatically invested, basically based on what you choose. Or for us, for Viasat, the default is into a target retirement account, which is good. Down the road, you want to adjust that, in my opinion. But if you just put money into an IRA, it's just going to sit there in cash until you take that second step and buy equities or, you know, some of the type of securities with it. Okay, so people have made that mistake and they have a bunch of money. Christian, speaking of, the TSP used to do this, where it just all sat in the G fund, the most conservative, terrible performing fund in the military's 401k. And it's frustrating if you didn't know that. You could have wasted years of compounding. But it's just key to make sure you invest that money, and especially in the IRA and brokerage account. Dustin, you want to say something?
Yeah, so we have in our company's account a Roth IRA and a regular IRA. I believe we can have our individual accounts too.
Absolutely.
Some other
just a
brokers,
correct wording on that. The company provides a Roth or traditional 401k, and then you separately open up an individual retirement account, an IRA, and that can be traditional or Roth, and you can contribute both the maximum amount to both of those, both the 401k and an IRA. These are the numbers right now for what we can contribute to the 401k. And I gave an example. I gave an example of what the max match would be, that, you know, potential, but showing how much we can contribute. The employee elected deferrals, that's our limit. But that whole umbrella of the 401k, a lot of companies, and I tried to get Viasat to do this, but they kind of gave me the Heisman. I don't know why. But they can do after-tax contributions and shove up to $61,000 into that. And if you have that and what's called in-service distributions, where you could push that after-tax money to a Roth IRA, it's called a mega backdoor Roth. And it's, I don't know why we don't have it. And Congress is trying to get rid of it, but there's more than just the employee elected deferrals that can go into the 401k. That, you know, there's a $61,000 limit for people under 50. And that includes, you know, all the employer matches and profit sharing, but that leaves like 30,000 you could put in.
So you're saying I can contribute, let's say 5%, the maximum on the company's account, and I can contribute 5% on my individual accounts?
You can contribute. Okay, we'll go to the next one. You can contribute right here. You can contribute a total of $20,500 per year, starting this year, in the company 401k, Roth or traditional, the combination of those.
Not necessarily percentage, it's more of the amount.
Number. Exactly. That's your maximum contribution limit. Like I said, there's more that the actual umbrella of the whole the 401k can allow, IRS allows up to 61,000, but you only, they call the employee elective deferrals, which is what we think of our limit is we can put 20,500. Next slide, I'm going to go into, okay, that's a health savings account, 36, this year it's 3650, family 7,300. But let's go to the IRA. So Dustin, here you can put in $6,000, and it's when I say 50, it's the year you turn 50. It's not once you become 50 years old, it's the year. So January 1st of the year you become 50, you can contribute another $1,000, and you can contribute $6,500 more dollars into your 401k. These are those income limits, Dustin, that you're talking about. So a Roth IRA, once there's a phase out. So once a single person makes 144K, they're not allowed to contribute to a Roth. The thing is, if you have but people don't realize, if you have an employer sponsored 401k like we do, there's income limits on the traditional IRA that you can deduct that. So, and it's very low. It's 68,000 to 78,000. That phases out. 78,000, you cannot deduct any of that $6,000 off your taxes. So why not do the Roth? But here's the thing, and we'll go into how do you backdoor it, because right now there's a loophole which Congress is trying to close. But you can contribute to your traditional IRA. You do a non-deductible, like an after-tax contribution, just money out of your pay, after your take-home pay. You put that into a traditional IRA, and then you immediately move it over to a Roth IRA and convert it to a Roth. There's a problem if you've already got a large traditional IRA. Jim, we were talking about this earlier. If you've already got it, or if you've rolled a 401k from a previous employer into a traditional IRA, now there's something that comes into the pro rata rule, and we can go into that. It's I don't want to go into it here because it's going to take too long, but it kind of messes up the back door, and you'll get taxed on a large percentage of what you put in to you convert into, do the backdoor Roth into.
Is the quick way around that to open up just a brand new traditional IRA account?
Nope, it aggregates all your IRAs. So
Oh, gosh.
the way to, Jim, the way to do it is get that IRA and shove it into your 401k. So
okay.
a lot of 401ks will accept, you can take your traditional. So then if you can put all that traditional into a 401k, now you don't have any of that pre-tax money, in the traditional. And you just take that, then you put money into the traditional IRA. All you've got is say the 6,000 in the traditional IRA, backdoor it into the Roth IRA. Does that make sense?
Gotcha. Okay. Yep.
So that's kind of the best way to do that. Most employers will allow you to roll that traditional IRA into your 401k. Okay. This is slide.
right.
Yes.
Really quick, can you go back one slide?
Yep.
So that married limit, is that joint household income or for that Roth
Yep.
IRA? Okay.
Yeah.
So once
that's
you have
exactly-
a
that's
joint
it.
household income of greater than 214, you can't contribute anymore?
You cannot, but you can backdoor it. That's why you need that. You can still backdoor it this year. And that's why Congress is trying to get rid of this. So if you have not maximized your contributions for 2021 and 2022, and you are above income limits to contribute legally, not illegally, sorry, that's the wrong word, to contribute within income limits to the Roth, get those in to your traditional IRA right now, and then backdoor it immediately, because Congress is trying to, hopefully they don't pass it, but they're trying to they're trying to close that door. And then I'll show you quickly. Let's see. Okay, here, this is important, especially for people
Alan?
that have, yeah.
How do you backdoor it when you have a corporate account?
Dustin, I'll get to that. I've got a slide on it. Sorry, I didn't, but I'll get to it. I just want to quickly show on this. If any of you are married or have a significant other that works for the state, works for school, education, nonprofit, firefighter, all these things, they have this other thing called a 457B, and it's awesome. And they can contribute that $20,500 in addition to the 401k. They can contribute that. And this, the 457 though, there's no penalty to pull out before 59 and a half. So Kevin, this is another example. If you had, when you're talking about, this is a beautiful way of money, of tax deferred or potentially Roth money that you can spend before, legal retirement age of 59 and a half for 401ks and IRAs. Does that make
Right.
sense?
Yeah, this thing's like a cheat code.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
So,
amazing.
and I just point this out because some of you probably have family members that have this and they might not even realize it. This incredible opportunity. So you can, that's, that one person could put $41,000 away, not even counting matching, amongst the 457 and the 401k, which for them it would be called like a 401a or 43b. So, okay. Here's why everybody should have a Roth. Okay. It can be used as a backup emergency fund. As I mentioned, you can immediately withdraw contributions, not conversions. So if you have to backdoor it because of income, that money is subject to a 5-year rule. No required minimum distributions. This is probably the biggest reason everybody has to get a Roth IRA, because when you turn 72, it used to be 70 and a half, that money is gonna, you have to start pulling out a certain percentage based on, life expectancy, and it could be a huge tax bomb. But if you've got a Roth IRA, you can slowly start converting money into that. And then you have total freedom of when you want to use that money. And then Roth conversions. This is the key to, converting that traditional money when you're in a lower tax bracket into Roth money that grows tax-free forever. And this is the way, Kevin, where you can get your money out before 59 and a half is through the Roth IRA. It's pretty slick. Okay, here's how to, Dustin, this is where we talk, why I say you need most people need both a traditional and a Roth. Because once you get above those income limits, you contribute. And what I do on the last, bullet is I put in the money each month the year before. So in 2021, I just put in, the dollar cost average into a high yield savings account. So it's kind of like it went towards my emergency fund. And then January 1st, I shoved the entire 2022 contribution into a traditional IRA. So it's just cash. And then it takes about a day or so before that cash settles. And then I convert it right back in. And I've actually got, if you need, I've got a procedure for how to do it for Fidelity and for Schwab, because that's what we use. But you basically just put money into a traditional, and I recommend doing it all at once because you don't want to have to go in and do the conversion, say every month, it's just a waste of time. So that's why I just save, and through one lump sum, and it's best to put in time in the market is better than timing the market. So if you can put in for 2022 in January, put it in cash, roll it, convert it, immediately to, and every financial institution has an easy way to do this, where you just convert your traditional IRA to a Roth IRA. And then you won't pay any tax because it's just cash right now. There's no earnings. So then it's already in the Roth. You invest it into whatever equities you want, and bam, tax-free growth forever. That's the back door.
Now, are you talking about your individual account, or
That's the individual retirement account.
Okay, you can't do that with the corporate.
The 401k, so we can't do that right now. I'm trying to get Viasat to allow for the mega backdoor Roth, but that's a larger discussion we can have later. I know we're running out of time. We've only got 7 minutes, but for Dustin, for there is no income limits on Roth 401ks. So you can contribute however you want in the 401k, traditional or Roth, or split it. And that's, And that kind of depends on your tax bracket. So you might want to do some Roth, some traditional, and just keep down like to a certain, depending on what your tax bracket is, which you can be strategic about it. But here quickly, Kevin, this is the how to get money out quickly. You contribute to how to do use the Roth IRA to get your money out early. So every one of those, those conversions, it starts a 5-year window, but and that's why you want to open up an Roth IRA immediately, because that starts that initial 5-year clock. There's several 5-year clocks associated with a Roth IRA, but this is a beautiful way especially for people, the FIRE movement, financial independence, retire early, to get that money out before 59 and a half. Okay, let's see. Here's quickly, we'll probably have to go into this. You want some of each. Kevin, this kind of goes into what you're saying, you were asking earlier. And I think you want, I'm not saying it should be a third, and third, but you want some of each. You don't want just all Roth either, because then you've been paying too much tax overall, but you want some in your brokerage account, some in your traditional IRA, and some in your 401k. And then you can have tax management. So let's say as you get towards retirement, you want to buy an RV. What kind of money do you want to use there? That would be a huge lump sum, right? So you don't want to take all your traditional and then you have this huge tax bill. There you'd want to use some brokerage account, maybe some Roth IRA, but for monthly expenses, that's probably use your traditional IRA, but you can be very strategic about how to manage your taxes so you keep yourself in a low tax bracket, yet have all the money that you want. That makes sense. Here's what too many people have. It's like all traditional. And then I put on the left, that's your strategy. If you got to start converting it before you're 72 and have to do RMDs, push Social Security out. And then, anyway, and then I said, why not all Roth? Because you're paying too much early. You could pay very low taxes with some traditional. And then if you're charitably minded, all that tax-free money, or the traditional money, they don't get taxed on it. You can give it to them, the whole thing, nobody pays taxes and they get more money. So just something to think about. I've got tax rates and stuff like that. I'm gonna quickly move through that. I'm not gonna get here. I'm gonna go into, okay, here's quickly what I think is important, because we only got a few more minutes. And we can, if you guys want, is this worthwhile to you guys that we'd want to do a second session where?
Oh my gosh, yes.
Okay.
Definitely.
We're good. Okay. I want to touch on right here, and I'll shoot these out to you guys anyway. But my personal, like what I believe is my hierarchy of, saving and investing. And there's, like I said at the bottom, health, HSA, it's great, but it's not worth you risking your health. I can get back to that, but here's what I want to get to. There's all of our, I've got all of our, 401k options, and what I think, the importance of, okay, and ESPP, we'll get into that, but everybody should be doing that. It's free money. It's 15% every 6 months at a minimum that you're making. Okay, so I wanted to get to this because this is where I think is just for people that need it. Hey, okay, we're talking all this crap. Now what do I do? First thing I think everybody should do, and I wish I had started this a lot earlier, but calculate your net worth. If you don't have I've got a great tracker, and it's actually kind of nerdy, but it'll show a graph. It'll show your net worth plus what your FI assets are, your true liquid assets are, and it shows how it's growing every quarter and every month. So you can see how and to me, it's very encouraging. People, you could be negative if you're, right out of college and have student loans, but I really find it helps me keep on the right track, and seeing that number grow is awesome. For the cash savings, I always use a high yield savings. It's not very high yield right now, but 0.5% is still better than 0.05%, which you get at the brick and mortar banks. Get your free money. So if you can, at least do 10% on the 401k. Utilize ESPP, 5% if you can. That takes 18 months really to, once you get that money, for it to be considered like long-term. It's called qualified. We can get into that later, but it doesn't matter. It's not that significant if you want to sell it right then and reinvest it into more diversified, like a total stock market index or something like that. These are 4 companies that are great. M1 Finance is a new thing that sets up, you can set up, they have like currently like 80 different things, like Merriman's 10, a bunch of great methods of standard investing that they do. That's one, but Vanguard, Schwab, and Fidelity are kind of the standard 3 that I recommend, low cost discount brokers. Set it up, make it automatic. Got to be automatic, or you're not going to be doing as much. Open up the brokerage account, as I said, because that's another thing you want to do. Here's the vast majority, 90 to 95% of your money, to me, should just be in low cost, broad-based index funds. U.S. total stock market, we've talked about that before. VTSAX, there's different, that's the Vanguard ones, or VTI is the ETF. So one big one that I recommend is small cap value. Let me see let me show you that slide, did I just bump past? Okay, you see the green line, the SCV, that's small cap value. It's super volatile, but over long periods of time, it wins. So it's gotten beat in the except for last year or the year before, 2020, it's beat out, the previous decade. It's the first time large cap really beat it, but long time, it's important to have an allocation of that in your account. And AVUV is I think the best one right now. ETF, BIOV, and IJS are also very good. Emergency fund, like I said, 3 to 6 months. Be patient. Investing should be boring. It's not. It's gambling's exciting, but that's not what we're wanting to do. Just stick with it. Be patient. When the market dips, it's on sale. Buy up as much as you can. Make sure you've done your budget at least. Like I said, I'm not one that likes to do it all the time, but it's important. And then keep saving. Don't increase your always increase your cost of living in accordance with your raises. Make sure you're putting more of that away. And then it's behavior. Behavior is what kills people, and why we don't. We are emotional animals as humans, and loss aversion is real. Those dips in the market freak us out much more than the gains do. So, okay, and then some questions I have for you guys. If this, was it too basic? What didn't make sense? You just think about that. And if you have, you can let me know. But then my certain questions for you, hey, does some of this stuff, does this help and provide you actionable steps right now? And then, if you need the net worth tracker, give me a shout. I've got a good one that you can use either quarterly or annually, however you want. And then here's some other topics I thought if people are interested, we could, also delve into deeper. If any of these, I know sometimes people, it's hard to know what questions to ask even. And so I thought this might give you a kind of a list of items that you might want to explore a little deeper. I've got to jump to another meeting. I'm already 2 minutes late, but is anybody have any questions or any feedback or things that, if you have recommendations how to make this better, please let me know.
How do you feel about financial advisors?
That's a longer discussion.
Okay.
Let's talk more
We can talk
first,
offline,
because
yeah.
there's a lot of questions you need to ask. They have to be a fiduciary in all aspects, but it's Chanson, I think early on in the accumulation phase, you really don't need it. My honest opinion. And I if I can help teach people, because accumulating, when you're getting towards accumulating, getting closer to retirement, that's hard. That's harder. figuring out how do I, okay, but in the accumulation phase, I don't think you really need it. But that, I mean, that's such a sweeping statement that but let's talk. But there's definitely questions you want to ask before you consider a financial advisor. Down the road, maybe you do as your net worth gets really more significantly higher. I can understand why, because now you're talking big numbers and you don't want to make a significant mistake. But okay, well, hey, everybody, hopefully that was helpful to you. And I'll set up another one to where we finish what we didn't talk about now. And then if you have more questions, feel free to let me know. And then we can even rattle off, go through a bunch of questions if you have them at the start of the next one. And then if there's specific topics you see that you like, let me know. But if there's no other questions right now, everybody have a wonderful weekend and talk to you
Thanks,
soon.
Jeff, Alan. Yeah, thanks so
Thank
much.
you, Alan.
Thanks,
Very
Alan.
good.
Alan.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Alan.
Alan.
You're welcome.